I still remember the smell of vanilla candles, the kind she always lit when she came over to comfort me. That night they were burning again. Familiar, but suddenly sickening. Her phone had buzzed. Just once. And something in me, a whisper I'd silenced too many times, told me to look. I didn't want to. God knows I didn't want to. But I did. The screen lit up with his name. Not mine. A single message. Can't wait to fall asleep next to you again tonight. Time stop. I couldn't hear the rain anymore, though it had been pounding against the windows for hours. I couldn't hear her voice though she was talking. I think she was telling me about some new job offer, laughing like nothing had changed. But everything had. The air was heavy like breathing in smoke. My fingers trembled around her phone and my eyes burned. Not from tears, not yet, but from a heat rising behind my eyes, the kind that comes right before the soul shatters. I looked up at her. She met my eyes. And that was when I knew. The way her face drained of color. The way her lips parted but no words came out. The way silence became louder than any scream I've ever heard. You. I couldn't finish. My mouth wouldn't let me. But I didn't need to. Because she took the phone back with the gentleness of a nurse treating a patient she already knows won't make it. She sat down slowly. No excuses. No explanations. Just a single sentence, whispered like a confession to God. I didn't mean for it to happen. Didn't mean for what? For comforting me when I could barely breathe after the divorce. For sleeping on my couch while I sobbed through legal papers. For holding my hand, telling me he never deserved me. Or for sliding into my place in his life like I was just a phase they both agreed to forget. My knees gave out and I sank to the floor. The wood was cold. Unforgiving. I stared at the lines in the grain like they could offer an answer, a reason, a why. But they didn't. She moved toward me. Gently, always so gently, like I was something fragile. Maybe I was. I still love you, she said, voice cracked. And that was the cruelest part. 'Cause I think in some twisted way she meant it. That night I learned something I wish I could unlearn. The deepest cuts don't come from enemies. They come from the hands we once reached for in the dark. From the voices that once said, I'm here. You're not alone. From the people who promised to help you heal. Only to twist the knife when you finally start to believe them. Tell me, how do you rebuild a heart that was broken by the very hands that once held it together? Before the betrayal, there was us. Not her and him. Her and me. She was my anchor when the storm of divorce first hit. And back then the pain of losing him was real, or so I thought. I used to say she saved me, though now I wonder if she was only building a bridge. Straight to my ruins. But I didn't see it that way at the time. Back then life was soft. My mornings started with her texts. Breathe today. I'm with you. She'd bring me coffee in my favorite chipped mug, the one he never liked. She said it had character like me. She would sit beside me on the couch, legs tucked under her like a cat, while I cried over the pieces of a marriage I couldn't hold together. She didn't rush me. She never judged, just listened. Listened like no one ever had. And slowly I began to laugh again. Not the full belly kind. Not yet, but small bursts. The kind that catch you off guard and remind you you're still alive. We cooked together. Pasta mostly. She'd hum while stirring the sauce, and I'd pretend not to notice how calming her voice was. She helped me repaint my bedroom. New color, new chapter, she said. We chose sage green. Peaceful. I trusted her with everything. My grief, my guilt, my broken dreams. She'd hold my hand in the middle of my meltdowns. Wrap me in blankets like a child. Tell me stories from her past. Heartbreaks, lessons, moments of strength. And through her words I learned how to stand again. But there were signs, weren't there? Tiny fractures in the picture I refused to examine too closely. Like the night I caught her staring too long at a photo of us. Me and him, still framed in the hallway. Her eyes lingered on his face, and something in her expression flickered. I asked if she was okay. She smiled and said, just remembering how bad his haircut was. We laughed. I brushed it off. Then there was the day she, accidentally, ran into him at the bookstore. She told me about it casual like it meant nothing. We didn't even talk long, she said. I barely recognized him. But something tightened in her voice. I ignored it. I wanted to ignore it. Because after everything she was my safety. And if I questioned that, if I even entertained the idea that something was off, what would I have left? So I let it slide. I told myself not to be paranoid, not to poison the only real connection I had left. She wasn't just my friend, she was my lifeline. We had this ritual. Every Sunday, she'd bring pastries and we'd sit on the balcony in our pajamas, watching the city stir awake. She called them our healing mornings. I used to think those mornings were sacred. Now, I wonder if they were rehearsals for her new life, the one she was quietly stitching behind my back. We shared secrets like teenagers under blankets. We made vision boards. We promised to travel together one day, to find a little cottage by the sea where we'd grow old drinking wine and forgetting the men who never deserved us. How could I have known that my healing was her path to him? I thought love, any kind of love, meant safety. That someone willing to hold your pain couldn't possibly be the one who would cause even more. But sometimes love isn't protection. Sometimes it's the blindfold. And I wore mine willingly. It started with shadows. Not full betrayals, just flickers. Moments that didn't fit. Sentences that didn't finish. Phone calls that ended too quickly when I entered the room. At first, I blamed the residue of my divorce. That kind of pain lingers. It sharpens your instincts, but it also warps them. I was afraid of seeing monsters where there were none. She'd still come over with croissants, still light those same vanilla candles. But now, her eyes didn't always meet mine. Sometimes they drifted, staring into spaces that didn't exist. Sometimes she was quieter, her voice softer, as if she was somewhere else, or with someone else. I'd ask, "Are you okay?" And she'd smile, that half smile, the one I used to love. Just tired. Work's been crazy. But she wasn't tired. She was hiding. And I let her. I remember one night in particular. We just watched a movie. Something forgettable. She fell asleep on my couch like always. I stood in the kitchen washing the wine glasses and her phone buzzed on the coffee table. I wasn't snooping. Not really. It just lit up in my peripheral vision. Message. From a number she'd saved under Danielle work. It read, "When are you telling her?" Everything inside me went quiet. Not panic. Not angry. Just frozen. I stared at those words like they could rearrange themselves into something less devastating. Picked up the phone. Touched the screen. Her passcode, I knew it. She'd never hidden it before. My fingers hovered. My breath caught. But I didn't open it. I told myself it was a coincidence. Maybe Danielle was asking about a work thing, a promotion maybe. Maybe I was projecting. Seeing betrayal in innocent places. So I woke her up gently. She smiled, still half asleep. Asked if she was okay. Again. She nodded. Said she was dreaming about Italy. But I didn't sleep that night. And from that point on, the cracks grew wider. She started canceling our Sundays. Once she said she had a migraine. Another time she had to help her sister move. But I knew her sister. She hadn't moved in 3 years. I began to trace timelines in my head. Little overlaps I'd dismissed now burned with meaning. That random bookstore run-in. The sudden, "I'm just not feeling social" weekends. The way her tone shifted whenever he came up. Cautious, rehearsed. One night I finally asked her, "Have you seen him?" She didn't lie. She just paused. For a second too long. Not on purpose. It's a small city. That's when I knew. Not the full truth, not yet, but I could feel the shape of it. And it was terrifying. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing you'll fall, but still hoping there might be a ledge you haven't seen yet. I started spiraling. Every message she sent I dissected. Every excuse, every laugh, every absence. I examined them all like an investigator searching for a body. And I found one, mine. My trust. My heart. Buried beneath her silence. Began to feel crazy. Was I jealous? Paranoid? Possessive? Was it me? I tried to tell myself that. I tried to believe it. Because if the problem was me, I could fix it. But one night, one final night, I followed the doubt all the way down. I waited until she left my apartment, claiming she had an early meeting. I watched from my window as she got into a rideshare. I tracked her location. We shared it on our phones, for safety, we'd said. She went to his building. She didn't stay outside. She had a key. I sat in the dark for hours that night. My body numb. My mind racing in slow motion. I had been replaced. Not just by someone else but by her. My safe place. My sister in heartbreak. My shadow. And suddenly everything made sense. In the most painful way possible. I didn't confront her right away. You'd think I would have marched over, screamed, broken something. But instead I curled into myself. Like a wounded animal licking a wound it can't reach. Because the truth wasn't just betrayal. It was the unspoken admission that I was still hoping it wasn't real. She came over 2 days later acting normal. Holding a bag of groceries like she hadn't just crossed the invisible line that should never be touched. She kissed my cheek. Made pasta. Lit the vanilla candle. I sat at the table, watching her hands chop garlic. Those same hands that once wiped tears from my face had touched him. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask everything. But instead I said, "You've been distant." He paused. Just a beat. Then smiled. "I've just had a lot on my mind. Work's intense lately. And I don't know. Maybe I need to figure out some things for myself." She was still lying. And I was still pretending I couldn't see it. Because what do you do when the person you run to is the fire? So I tried harder. I invited her to stay the night. Something we hadn't done in weeks. We stayed up late, drinking wine, laughing about a memory from years ago, when we both got sunburned on the same beach trip and shared aloe like two idiots. It almost felt normal. Almost. But I couldn't unsee it anymore. The way her phone never left her side. The slight twitch in her expression when his name came up in casual conversation. The ache in my chest that never went away. Then came the excuses. She started showing up less. Canceling more. Our Sunday mornings became Sunday silences. I sent her a voice message one day, crying, just asking, "Did I do something? Are you pulling away from me?" She replied the next morning, with soft words and careful concern. "Of course not. Love you. You're my person. My person." But now I wonder, did she mean that in past tense all along? I tried therapy. I told my therapist everything. Everything except the exact truth. I said, "I think I'm losing my best friend." I didn't say why. Because admitting that out loud would have made it final. But the therapist asked me something I'll never forget. What would you do if you knew she was already gone? I didn't answer. Couldn't. Because part of me still believed I could fix it. I started blaming myself. Maybe I was too emotional. Maybe I leaned on her too hard. Maybe I'd pushed her away somehow. Opened a door she wasn't strong enough to close. I told myself to be better. Calmer. More understanding. I became afraid to be sad in front of her. Afraid it would send her running further. So I smiled when I was breaking. I cheered for her victories, even when I felt like I was being erased. And I still remember the moment I almost forgave her, without even knowing the full truth. It was during a random text exchange. She wrote, "No matter what happens, I'll always love you." But by then, those words felt like a riddle. Soft threat. Goodbye in disguise. Then came the final moment. The drop of acid in the water I had been drinking so blindly. Found the photo. They were at a restaurant. Her hair was tied back the way he used to like. He was holding her hand across the table. The caption on someone else's story said, "Unexpected couple of the year." And there it was. The drop. The truth. The end. I stared at the photo for what felt like an hour. My thumb hovered above the screen, not knowing what to do. Not knowing how to move, how to breathe. They looked happy. That's what shattered me. Not the betrayal. Not the deception. Not even the absurd, cruel irony of it all. It was their joy. Their smiles, so unbothered, so undeserved, while I sat alone in the apartment that still smelled faintly of her shampoo. The woman who swore to protect me from him had become the woman who now belonged to him. I didn't cry. Not at first. There's a kind of heartbreak that's so deep, so catastrophic, that it numbs everything before it burns. It sits in your throat like a stone, too big to swallow, too jagged to spit out. I went to her place. I didn't call. I didn't warn her. I needed the truth to look me in the eyes. She opened the door in leggings and one of his old t-shirts. I recognized it immediately. It used to be mine before he borrowed it. Now it hung on her body like an inheritance made of ash. Her face drained when she saw me. But she didn't look guilty. She looked relieved. Like she'd been waiting for the moment everything would finally be exposed. I didn't yell. Couldn't. All I said was, "How long?" Her lips parted and for a second, just a heartbeat, I saw her break. "Since a little after the divorce." I blinked. "And you were with me the whole time. Letting me cry to you. Letting me trust you." Tears welled in her eyes. "It wasn't planned. I swear to God it wasn't. I didn't mean to. But you did." My voice came out steady, too calm. "You did." She stepped toward me like that mattered. Like proximity could fix a betrayal born from intimacy. He reached out to me. At first I just wanted to keep an eye on him, to make sure he wasn't trying to mess with you. And then what? I asked, trembling. "You just fell into him." She flinched. "I was lonely too," she whispered. "I was hurting too." The words hit like a slap. Not because they weren't true, but because they tried to equalize the pain. As if her loneliness justified burying a knife into my back. I shook my head, stepping back. "You were supposed to be my friend. My sister. You were supposed to catch me, not throw me deeper." "I didn't know how to stop," she said. "I didn't mean to fall in love with him. But I did. And I didn't want to hurt you. God, I never wanted that. But you did." Silence. The kind that fills your ears like water. Drowning. Cold. Then she whispered, "I still love you." And that was the moment that broke me. Because I believed her. In some awful, twisted way, I believed her. She did love me. Just not enough. Not enough to choose me over desire. Not enough to walk away when the line between compassion and chemistry began to blur. Not enough to remember who held her hair when she was sick. Who stayed up all night when her father was dying. Who never once crossed a line, even when I could have. I turned around. Didn't scream. Didn't beg. Didn't collapse. I walked away. And that night, for the first time in months, I fell asleep not because I was numb, but because the truth finally had nowhere left to hide. Healing isn't cinematic. It's not soft lighting and slow piano and sunrise walks on empty beaches. It's ugly. Uneven. It happens in grocery store aisles, on bathroom floors, in the middle of a sentence when you realize you haven't thought about them for an entire hour. That's how it started for me. Not with peace, but with emptiness. The day after the confrontation, I deleted every picture I had of the three of us. Every message. Every note she wrote me. Every voicemail I couldn't bear to hear again. I boxed up the things she left at my place. Her scarf, her toothbrush, her favorite tea, and left them on her doorstep. No note. Just silence. For the first time, I let myself feel the full weight of what I'd lost. Not just him. Not just her. For me. I had given so much of myself to people who saw me only as a bridge. A space to pass through on the way to somewhere else. I stopped pretending to be fine. Stopped explaining my grief. Stopped answering questions with, "It's complicated," and started saying the truth out loud. My best friend and my ex fell in love while I was falling apart. There's a strange kind of strength that comes with brutal honesty. It doesn't protect you, but it grounds you. I started therapy again. Real therapy. The kind where I stopped talking about them and started talking about me. About the way I abandoned myself in the name of loyalty. About the way I confused self-sacrifice with love. About the silence I swallowed just to be enough for people who were already looking elsewhere. And slowly, painfully, things began to shift. I remember the first morning I made coffee without crying. The first time I walked past our usual cafe and didn't feel like the air was being sucked from my lungs. The first time I looked in the mirror and didn't see someone who was left behind, but someone who survived. I reconnected with people I'd pushed away. Old friends I hadn't called in months, family members I'd kept at arm's length during the chaos. And they reminded me of something I'd forgotten. I was more than what they took from me. I began doing things alone, not out of loneliness but reclamation. I went to the museum she always said was boring. I took a pottery class and made a terrible lopsided bowl that I now use to hold my keys. I started writing again, long angry letters I never sent. And then, eventually, letters of release. Not forgiveness, not yet, but release. One night, I stood in front of the mirror and said it out loud. You are not unlovable. You are not invisible. You are not the wound, you are the healing. That was the moment something changed. Not a full transformation. Not a movie ending. But a beginning. I met new people. I laughed. Genuinely from the gut. For the first time in months, I learned to set boundaries, to say no, to ask myself before every choice, is this for me or am I bleeding for someone else again? And slowly I rebuilt, not the same life, not the same heart, a different one that knows better, stands taller and loves itself first. Because maybe the cruelest part of betrayal is that it tries to erase you. But healing, real healing, is writing yourself back into your own story. Some wounds don't heal cleanly. They leave ridges, scar tissue. But over time you stop flinching when you touch them. It's been over a year now. They're married. Yes, her and him. Courthouse wedding. Quiet. Quick. Someone told me they looked radiant. I didn't cry when I heard. I didn't even blink. Because by then, I had already learned the most important truth of all. Their love had nothing to do with my worth. For the longest time I thought heartbreak made me less lovable, less smart, less beautiful, less whole. But pain is not subtraction. It's transformation. I've learned how to be alone without being lonely. How to sit with my thoughts without running. How to rebuild trust, not in others, not yet, but in myself. And no, I haven't forgiven them. Not completely. Forgiveness isn't something you owe someone who watched you drown while holding the rope. It's something you give yourself when you're finally ready to stop carrying the weight of what they did. And I'm almost there. Not for them. For me. 'Cause I deserve peace. I deserve joy without tension. Love without confusion. Friendship without betrayal. I no longer wish for an apology. I no longer fantasize about them breaking up or her calling me in tears, saying, you were right. Because I've stopped needing to be right. I just want to be free. And maybe that's the real ending. Not revenge, not reconciliation, but release. Some nights I still light a vanilla candle. The scent doesn't sting anymore. It's just a smell. Memory. A reminder that even the things that once made you ache can lose their power when you reclaim them. I don't know if she ever regrets it. I don't know if he ever compares me to her in quiet moments, wondering what he lost. But I do know this. I was the one who survived. I was the one who loved fully and gave everything, and still managed to rise, even when they left me empty. That kind of strength. They'll never have it. So here's what I want to leave you with. If you've been betrayed by someone you loved, if the person who was supposed to protect you became the blade, if you're staring at the pieces of your own heart, wondering if it will ever beat the same way again, know this. It won't. But it will beat stronger. You'll laugh again. You'll trust again, not recklessly but wisely. You'll love again, deeply and without apology. And this time you'll choose you first. Because sometimes the person who walks away with what was yours is still left with less. And you are not the story of what they did to you. You are the story of what you did after. So now I ask you, would you ever forgive someone who broke your heart? While looking into your eyes and calling it love. Let me know in the comments. Let's talk. Let's heal. Together,